In the 1970s, Uganda was ruled by a man who called himself His Excellency, President for Life, Field Marshal Alhaji Dr. Idi Amin. He wore medals across his chest. He held military parades. He spoke with confidence and humor. To some Africans, he looked like a strong leader who stood up to former colonial powers. But to many Ugandans, his rule brought fear, disappearances, and economic collapse. It is estimated that hundreds of thousands of people died during his time in power. Who was this man? How did a village boy with little formal education rise to become one of Africa's most controversial rulers? And how did his rule end in exile, far from the country he once controlled? This is the story of Idi Amin. By the way, if you enjoy stories of people, places, and purpose, welcome to Living with Charlie, where we explore real lives and the lessons they carry. Here, we learn from others so we can live more richly and more intentionally. If that resonates with you, I invite you to subscribe and join our growing community. Now, back to our story. Idi Amin was born around 1925 in the western region of Uganda. At that time, Uganda was under British colonial rule. The British controlled the government, the army, and the economy. They also shaped how different ethnic groups related to each other. Some groups were favored, others were sidelined. Amin grew up in a poor family. His father left when he was young. He had little formal education and dropped out of school early. He was physically strong and tall. From a young age, he was known for his size and athletic ability. He later became a boxer and even won national boxing title in Uganda. In colonial East Africa, one of the few ways for a young man with limited education to rise in society was through the military, and that was the path Amin chose. In 1946, Amin joined the King's African Rifles, a unit of the British colonial army. The military gave him structure, income, and status. It also exposed him to violence and strict discipline. He served in Kenya during the Mau Mau uprising in the 1950s, where British forces fought against anti-colonial fighters. These operations were harsh and often brutal. During his service, Amin gained a reputation for being fearless and physically tough. He rose steadily through the ranks at a time when few Africans were allowed to become senior officers. When Uganda gained independence in 1962, Amin was already a respected military officer. But independence did not bring stability. After independence, Uganda became a young and fragile nation. Milton Obote became prime minister and later president. At first, Amin and Obote worked together. Obote promoted Amin within the army. Amin became a commander of the armed forces. However, political tensions began to grow. Uganda was divided along ethnic and regional lines. There were accusations of corruption and power struggles within government. By the late 1960s, trust between Obote and Amin had broken down. Obote began to suspect Amin of misconduct and possible disloyalty. Amin, on the other hand, feared he might be arrested or removed from power. In January 1971, while President Obote was out of the country, Amin made his move. On January 25th, 1971, the Ugandan army seized power. Idi Amin announced on radio that the military had taken control of the government. There was little resistance. Many Ugandans welcomed the change. Some were tired of political tensions and hoped the army would bring stability. Foreign governments, including Britain and Israel, initially recognized the new government. At first, Amin promised to restore order and return power to civilians. But within months, it became clear that Uganda was entering a new and dangerous phase. After taking power, Amin moved quickly to secure his position. He removed officers and soldiers he did not trust. Many were arrested. Many were never seen again. He strengthened the role of the military and security agencies. Fear became part of daily life for many Ugandans. Political opponents, intellectuals, judges, religious leaders, and even ordinary citizens were targeted. Human rights organizations estimate that between 100,000 and 300,000 people were killed during his rule. The exact number is still debated. In 1972, Amin announced one of his most dramatic decisions. He ordered the expulsion of Asians from Uganda, giving them only 90 days to leave. Many of these families had lived in Uganda for generations and played a major role in trade and business. Amin said the move was to return Uganda's economy to true Africans. But after their departure, many businesses collapsed. The economy suffered severe damage. Inflation rose. Shortages increased. As the years passed, Uganda became increasingly isolated internationally. Amin's rule became more unpredictable. He changed alliances several times. First, working with Western nations, then turning towards Libya and other countries. In 1976, Uganda became the center of global attention during the Entebbe hijacking incident, when Israeli commandos carried out a rescue mission at Entebbe airport. Meanwhile, the Uganda economy continued to weaken. Corruption increased. Basic services declined. In 1978, Amin made a critical mistake. Uganda forces invaded neighboring Tanzania. Tanzania responded with a strong counterattack, supported by Uganda exiles who opposed Amin. By April 1979, Tanzanian forces had captured Kampala. Amin fled the country. His 8-year rule had come to an end. After fleeing Uganda, Amin first went to Libya and later settled in Saudi Arabia. The Saudi government granted him asylum. Unlike many former rulers, Amin was never put on trial. He lived quietly in Jeddah for more than 2 decades. He rarely spoke publicly about his time in power. He continued to defend his actions and deny responsibility for many of the deaths. In 2003, Idi Amin died at the age of around 78. He died far from Uganda, the country he once ruled with absolute authority. Idi Amin remains one of the most debated figures in African history. Some remember his early speeches about African pride and independence from foreign influence. Many others remember fear, loss, and economic destruction. His rule weakened Uganda's institutions and left long-term damage that took years to repair. Historians continue to examine his leadership in the context of colonial legacies, Cold War politics, ethnic divisions, and military power. But one fact remains clear: unchecked authority combined with fear and insecurity can destabilize a nation. Idi Amin's story is not only about one man, it is about how power is gained, how it is used, and what happens when it is not restrained. Uganda survived this rule, but the impact of those years is still remembered today.